Welcome back, Tribe. Got recommended this video. Shout outs to Kevin. And let's get into it. It says the crisis nobody is talking about.
Angry young men.
Far-right extremists.
Radicalized young men.
Young boys being radicalized online.
If you're a man, doesn't it feel like every woman hates you? The data proves you're right. Young women are way more progressive than men at the same age, and more men are being painted as becoming radical and far-right extremists. But why is this happening? In this video, we're going to follow the data, the incentives, the institutions, and the history to figure out how the gender divide actually happened, why it's accelerating, and what we can do before you grow old and single. Take a look at the collapsing birth rates. A stable society needs 2.1 children per woman just to survive, but the female fertility rate in the United States, Canada, the UK, France, Germany, and Italy are all sitting at numbers way below replacement. But one thing is clear, this is a crisis, and this is the most concerning data I've ever covered on this channel. This is why. Listen, I'll say the quiet part out loud that nobody wants to say. According to the data, the ideological shift is overwhelmingly happening on the female side, not the male side.
But I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, why isn't anyone married? You tell me, why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women. The women are extremely liberal. No one talks about that, especially after the last election. There's a 45-point difference.
The reason for that is not what you think. Here's where things get interesting and honestly a little bit bizarre, because baked into this narrative of men becoming misogynists and radicalized is a paradox that I'm about to expose to you. The story you always hear is the same. Men are becoming radicalized. Men are falling into extremism. The manosphere is brainwashing young boys. But here's the contradiction, and this is the part that absolutely nobody wants to acknowledge for some reason. Men's ideology hasn't actually shifted that much. They've stayed roughly where they were about 10, 15, or even 20 years ago on many of the major points. And even compared to 100, 200, 300, and so on years ago, they're not radically different. A little bit more progressive, but not radically. The study we looked at earlier isn't the only one noticing this caked-in trend. That's not my opinion. This is Pew, Gallup, YouGov, take your pick. So think about this logically. If men stayed the same and women moved, why is the entire culture narrative focused on the male radicalization? Well, because of one thing. There is an agenda. They have made it clear to us. And if they didn't want us to believe that, they wouldn't be saying it. In 2019, the American Psychological Association released an official guideline declaring that traditional masculinity, stoicism, competitiveness, leadership, risk-taking is inherently harmful. The United Nations...
This dude's crushing it so far. What's his channel name? Just so everybody knows. Lungs of Faith. So far, he's hitting at all the points.
Through the he for she movement teaches that global gender problems originate primarily from male behavior patterns. Corporate advertising and HR, from Gillette to Nike to Dove, constantly portray men as violent, impulsive, or in need of ideological correction, all the while presenting women as morally superior. And academia, especially gender studies programs since the 1980s, have built its entire framework on the idea that masculinity is a political problem that must be dismantled and re-engineered. So the message is...
Now, men are a problem. The message was men are toxic, men are fundamentally broken, women are superior, and the only redeemable quality for a man is to cut his balls off or his dick off, to become a eunuch, to become anything but what he used to be, what represents real power, masculine nature, competition, stoicism, civilization building, creators of everything around us. That is what they're attacking. They want to usher in a new world order of new modern males, new males that eat their bug sandwiches, that say yes, sir, to tyrannical governments, that will never rebel or lead a revolution, that are good little piggies for society. They will work to the bone, get paid absolutely nothing, get taxed to death, and then furthermore enslaved by women to go into these death of marriages where they end up being husks of their former selves while the state reinforces the rape of your wallet, your mentality, your masculinity. And men are now rising up in tandem and saying, we've had enough. We're seeing what's happening to women. Men are having to come up with stupid solutions just to live the life their grandfathers lived. Passport bros. You have to go overseas to find anything considered decent for a woman. Femininity does not exist in the modern world anymore. In the West, they're masculine, they walk like men, they cut their tits off, they say men should be decentered from their lives, that anything a man touches turns to shit. What are men good for, like a fish and a bicycle? They've been fed feminist propaganda with extremely toxic feminine qualities. Toxic femininity is rampant today. It's not toxic masculinity. It's toxic femininity. It's infected the workforce. It's infected politics. It's infected corporate America. It's infected all our governance. We cannot talk honestly. We cannot say certain things about society. Everybody's feelings are hurt. We have to tone police every single aspect of our lives and apologize for ourselves and open up our borders and watch our women get raped, our young men being killed. We have to invite savages, invaders, barbarians, let them in, and also get on our knees and thank them for coming and diversifying us with some tikka masala. And then the boomers are all wondering, why aren't people getting married anymore? Our institutions are crumbling. Science has been politicized. You forced young men into a world where they're hated, especially young white men. And you're wondering why the graph is skewing so much? And then they've brainwashed and captivated all the minds of women with TikTok, with Instagram, and turned our women into whores. They get on the internet for $5 a month to show their bodies. They don't want a husband. $5 a month to show their bodies off to strange men is seen as a lifestyle flex today. And to have sex with 30 dudes before you even graduate high school is seen as you being sexually liberated and free and a boss babe. Everything wrong and disgusting with this society has come down from the shoulders of liberal democracy, liberal ideology, with underpinnings of Marxism that has led to the erosion of all things sacred, our institution, our family. And now they're wondering why. How could this happen? Why are men turning their backs on society? Why are women becoming so extreme? Why are women, 50% of them, liberal, on SSRIs? Why are they medicating themselves so much? You ever thought and just stopped for a second and just seen what life used to be like? That's what Gen Z is seeing, what life was like before. And now they're forced to live into this shithole. Me as a millennial got to see what it was like in the 90s before the internet. Before that shit was widespread, before cell phones, people, back when you used to play outside all day and that's all you could do, when society was still somewhat normal, somewhat contained, the facade hadn't fallen down just yet. People still were asleep to how corrupt the government really was, how much theft and grift and fraud was going on. We were able to absorb bad policy still because the average person could still afford a house, had a decent paying job, could start a family, and saw themselves as my life could be better in the next 20, 30 years, or I live a better life than my parents did. My lifestyle has upgraded, my quality of life. That is gone today. We're on the advent of a societal collapse. We have way too many immigrants. AI in the next 5 years will most likely radically transform the economy. There's going to be growing pains in between this massive abundance they say we're going to have, where prices go to zero because AI will be able to produce everything for near zero cost. But until that happens, there is a gap of pain where the average person is going to get completely wrecked, and the government doesn't care. We have files that don't get released about peddlers in the government with diddlers and kid and all this crazy shit. And we're supposed to pretend that when you ingest all this fucking slop, all this poison food, all this fucking adult entertainment, you can't even get on social media without tits being thrown in your face, that people wonder what the fuck is happening to men. No, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with the world that you left for us? That's the question. We don't want to partake in this disgusting, depraved, degenerate fucking filth of a world that you've created. And we rather burn it down and start a new one. Because I can watch a video of the 40s, 50s, or 60s, hell, 70s and 80s, and it's better than what we have today. I have to dodge feces, human feces, not from a dog. I have to dodge needles from drug addicts in the streets in America, in major cities all over the United States. It's not one place. It's not Skid Row anymore. They're fucking everywhere. Every overpass, underpass. On the beach, it doesn't matter. They're doing the fucking zombie thing where they're just like floating back and forth, high as fuck on fentanyl and whatever else. And the government does nothing. You have criminals stabbing people in the fucking neck with 14 arrests, 30 arrests setting people on fire. And we're supposed to look the other way because what? They're black. So you can't say anything about criminals because it depends on the skin color. Europe is falling into this madness. America is close behind. Why are men going conservative? Are you fucking retarded or do your eyes not work? Unreal.
Clear and coordinated across these institutions. Men are the issue. Masculinity is the problem. And the culture must fix them. This isn't about, hey man, you're becoming too radical and it's hurting society and you need to stop. It's about, we want you to fit into our program. We already socially engineered and radicalized women in the 20th century, and now you just need to get on board with our agenda. Or else, we will label your perfectly rational view of life in the world as radical until you simply get tired of it and throw in the towel. And frankly, from my experience and the first-hand evidence of the internet, men are just not having that. That's why you have the reaction of the manosphere influencers like Andrew Tate and guys like that, who I have to say I have my disagreements with as a practicing Catholic. You stretch a rubber band far enough, eventually it's going to snap back at you. Now, all of this starts to make a lot of sense when we look at the actual facts, and the facts are insane because the really radical stuff happens at the incentive level, the incentive structures that society has placed for women. The modern economy rewards women for becoming more liberal and punishes them for becoming more traditional. Think about it. Women now earn 60% of bachelor's degrees, 70% of master's degrees, nearly 60% of all PhDs, and universities are basically ideological factories, and their ideology is overwhelmingly progressive. And what exactly do universities incentivize for women? Career-first identity, anti-family framing, don't settle too soon, distrust of men, hyper-individual autonomy, therapy language morality, gender-based activism, secular spirituality over religious commitment. None of this is a conspiracy, it's just the modern incentive system, and I think they would happily admit that to you. And they're all trying to sell this perspective to you that it's all coming from an organic feminist movement, this is all just grassroots, and it's just natural, this is the natural progression of life, but the evidence just becomes overwhelmingly against that. When we look into this with sober eyes, these schools are not neutral playgrounds. According to a Manhattan Institute study, 7 out of 10 students in the US are exposed to at least one critical social justice concept in K-12 classes, even in private and parochial institutes. Another study found that most schools in North America teach left-wing racial ideology as if it were an established fact, even though it's highly disputed. Global parliamentary researchers in Australia concluded that progressive ideology is so deep-seated that most teachers don't even see it as an ideology anymore. And when you look at education schools, the institutions that train teachers, one historian observes that progressivism is the ruling ideology there. Again, none of this comes to us as a surprise, but these studies back it up. In other words, the pipeline for ideology runs from teacher training to curriculum to classroom, all from one source. And if you question it as a teacher, your entire career is at risk in places like Canada. The tenured professor Francis Widdowson was terminated in December 2021 after publicly criticizing the university's indigenization agenda and other ideological positions.
And you are no longer employed at Mount Royal University. What happened?
An Indigenous scholar activist, because I was defending a journalist who had been pushed out of her job for referring to a book title that had a racial epithet in it. And as a result of that, this Indigenous scholar activist by the name of Gabrielle Lindstrom, who now goes by the name Gabrielle Weaselhead, she mobilized an anonymous group against me. A whole bunch of her supporters piled on.
What a
I was
fucking
found
joke.
to have harassed her.
An arbitrator later ruled her firing as disproportionate and unjust, although she never regained her position.
Because a number of Indigenous scholar activists and a trans activist feel unsafe about me making arguments that they don't like, it has been the arbitrator decided that I couldn't return.
This shows a concrete event where ideological nonconformity led to professional consequences in a university setting. But it's not only about firing dissenting voices. Institutions themselves respond to financial and reputational incentives. A UK study found higher education reforms created perverse incentives for universities to shape behaviors and ideologies in order to secure funding and regulatory advantages. This data comes from the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Another paper documents how colleges respond to student aid, loan default penalties, and enrollment benchmarks by shaping admissions and outcomes. And a commentary in University Affairs explains that there's no such thing as pure science. The interests of different parties shape the questions being asked, and how incentive structures direct how how those questions are answered. Let's put it simply. If a university is rewarded for diversity metrics, for activism, for social justice frameworks, then people inside it will naturally lean that way, because that is how institutional survival, funding, and reputation are built. Now, it really seems to me that the problem that these ideologues are pushing is not that they have a problem with authoritarianism, but rather that the authoritarianism isn't of their flavor. The system is rigged to ensure one outcome. Go to school, you become progressive. Delay your family, become progressive. Enter corporate HR pipeline, become progressive. It's ironic for a position that always claims women aren't given a chance and given a choice in a patriarchal society, but are they really being given a choice here, or is the outcome completely fixed? And if they were really given the choice, which one do you think they would choose? If we had a university program specifically funded and dedicated to training women to become better wives and better housekeepers, how many women would quit their STEM degrees in order to pursue that? Personally, from talking to a lot of women in my generation, I think a very high number would. But things only become worse when we look at the male situation. Hey, so before we dive in today, I just want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of the gracious support that this channel has received over the last little while. It is really difficult to find sponsors for videos like this. Funneled into universities, corporations, and institutions that shape political ideology, men are quietly walking away from the entire system. And this isn't speculation, this is hard economic data. Over the last 15 to 20 years, more than 7 million prime-age men ages 25 to 54 have disappeared from the workforce in the United States alone. Where exactly are they? They're not in school, they're not in training, they're not in job hunting, and they're not transitioning between careers. They're simply gone from the labor force. But why? Are they all suddenly Bitcoin millionaires and just don't need to work anymore? Are they living off the backs of female slave economy? Oops, wasn't supposed to say that one out loud. And today, the labor force participation rate for men is the lowest it's been since the Great Depression. Among young men, 18 to 29, the numbers are even worse. Unemployment has surged. Not in education, employment, or training. Entire segments of young men are living completely outside the production.
Remember, those numbers are only, like, they have the books cooked. You have to be looking for a job to be counted. So if you're not at work, you're not counted. If you're not looking for a job, you're not counted. Back in the old days, you either had a job or you didn't, and everybody who didn't have a job was considered unemployed. Now we're cooking the books and switching up the terminology so you don't see just how bad the actual statistics are. Take those numbers and double them. That's what's really going on.
Economy and the bounds of civilization, and how are they surviving? The data shows disability payments, welfare payments, parental support, random gig scraps, or literally doing nothing at all. Economists call this the male dropout crisis. Sociologists call it the great male opting out. And here's the core point. Women are being ideologically pulled into the system. Men are being economically pushed out of it. That means men aren't getting college indoctrination. Men aren't embedded in corporate HR departments. Men aren't absorbing ideological messaging 8 hours a day. Most men aren't even in the building, so of course men's worldview stays relatively stable. They're not inside the institutional machinery that rewrites ideology. Think about other times we've seen that in civilization. Things like this typically lead to some sort of a movement. This raises a question that nobody ever asks, but everyone feels. Why are corporations, school systems, governments, NGOs, pharmaceutical companies, makeup brands, food companies, clothing companies, literally every sector of society obsessed with shaping women's worldviews? Why do they spend billions of dollars every year on campaigns targeted at women? If women are supposedly tired of the patriarchy and finally empowered, then why does every powerful institution on earth treat them like a demographic they have to constantly convince, recruit, affirm, and ideologically maintain? Think about it. Why do governments pour money into women-centric advertising? Why do NGOs frame every issue through women and girls? Why is every corporate marketing department obsessed with female empowerment messaging? Why are pharmaceutical companies spending billions on contraception campaigns, hormone campaigns, fertility control messaging? Why do school boards and universities create bureaucracies around gender equality, women's studies, DEI for female students? Why do political parties build entire election strategies around the female vote?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
If women were naturally aligned with these worldviews, wouldn't you think they wouldn't need to be so sold? And you don't have to look any further than the gargantuan numbers they're spending. UN Women's budget was $1.3 billion spent between 2010 and 2020, explicitly on programs to reshape gender norms and shift cultural attitudes. The US government has spent hundreds of millions annually around.
They figured out women are easy slaves. You can convince women as an entire group to do whatever you want. You just need a few headlines. You need a few commercials. They're the most easily manipulated sex by far. You sell them beauty, you sell them youth. They figure it out with the makeup industry. They figure it out with the fashion industry. Women will buy literal slop and shit. And all it takes is one conversation, one single hot chick wearing the product at a Met Gala or a red carpet or something, and all women want it now. Women are so fucking brainwashed, they'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on purses. The most useless shit imaginable. They buy name brand. They're addicted to status. And they're addicted to fitting in. Not even an addiction. For them, it's a mechanism of survival. They have to fit in to survive. They can never be the one that stands out. That's a man's job. A man's job is to question authority, question power, change systems, or improve them. Women go with the flow. So if you can get all women in a group, they figured this out in psychology already. This is how women work. You get all women to agree, and then you turn them on the few men that dare to ask questions. And now you have a majority. The rest of the weak simps, the beta males, will follow along and help usher in this new world. This is the game. It's always been this. They knew from the start. This is bearing fruit, finally, after decades of being planted. Now we're seeing it in full action. And people want to act like it's such a fucking surprise. Why would they target the women? Why are they radicalizing the women to be uber liberal authoritarians that will literally execute you for simply the tone of which you've said something? You're not allowed to speak this way. Shut up, bitch. Shut the fuck up. We're done with this shit. We almost lost freedom and democracy in the world. Our democracy, we have already lost democracy, honestly. It's become extremely feminine. We're on the verge of turning into tyrannical government. And then it will take a revolution, which we're all trying to avoid, to become a masculine republic again. And how many bodies is that going to cost? How many lives ruined? How many more wars need to be started for us to fucking understand universal suffrage is a mistake? You cannot operate a country. It is not strong if you have to pine and acquiesce every single fucking retard in society that does not care about politics, that does not have a say in who goes to war and who doesn't. Women don't go to war, for example, but it could still vote to go to war, can send men off to war. There are people whose IQ are too fucking low to be taken seriously in how to drive this country forward into the future. We need a meritorious democracy if we want democracy to survive. Otherwise, it leads to tyranny. It always does. The state is already turning inward. It is now looking for any anti-American bias, and we're going to be using the Patriot Act, and the DOJ has instructed the FBI to start combing through your social media to see if you're biased against Israel, to see if you're biased against Trump administration policies. And then a Democrat will get voted in, and then the same piece of shit system gets turned in on who? Then conservatives now, whoever's labeled anything other than radical progressive and those that are in power. And we have this seesaw back and forth between garbage and shit, and you're forced to pick. And this is democracy. Hey guys, welcome to democracy in the United States. We've been on a consistent decline no matter who gets in power for the last 50, 60, 70 fucking years, and nobody thinks, wait a second, no matter who I vote for, nothing changes. No matter who I vote for, they're all on the list. No matter who I vote for, they all take money and sell out our country, enriching their friends and the donor class and the special interest, while me and you suffer. Me and you get Medicare cuts. Me and you's taxes don't get lower. Me and you pay higher prices at the pump, in the grocery store. We now cannot afford housing. School's too fucking expensive. God forbid you break your leg because your Medicare policy, whatever you're paying your premiums, and they're high as shit and constantly rising, will not cover you. It's copay. Oh, it's out of pocket. Oh, we have a little loophole here. Because we donated hundreds of billions of dollars to your politicians so we could make sure the loopholes put in the next omnibus bill. Oh, we don't got to pay for nothing. Oops, myocarditis from the vaccine. Oops, we saw people die in the trials. Oh, we didn't report that. Looks like you can't sue us because we bought your government. why are men radicalizing right? You mean questioning this fucking system? Why are men questioning the system? And then you're like, huh, the system must invest in only women because they question nothing. Because they're the benefactors of this system. They get everything. Do you see all the programs? Do you see all the spending on gender ideology? Do you see how women are pushed through the door with DEI and all this shit? They're the main beneficiaries, so they stay mum on any changes needed. Oh, well, not my fault. Well, I'm doing pretty well. Well, sucks for those people. It will only get worse. I'm trying to let men know it gets worse from here. The future is uncertain. Nobody is coming to save you. This government will not save you. Women will not save you. Placating to women or the government or any other institution will not save you. You can only save yourself. This is why men form online
200
communities.
to 500 million.
This is why men are finding channels like this and other channels, and it's resonating so much. Why do you think they turn to channels like this that shouldn't even exist? We shouldn't even be dealing with these problems. All of us should be busy at a job, making good enough money to provide for a family and have 2-3 kids. But we can't do that, can we? Because they've taken your future. They stole from you while enriching themselves. And they're using women as a vehicle to make sure this system stays in place. That's the world you've built. This is the world that we're living in right now. You still question why? Unreal, bro. Unreal. And they expect you to accept this too, by the way. You're supposed to bow down, get on your knees, apologize for being a man. Let them walk all over you, take your dignity and your masculinity and your manhood away, and you're supposed to say thank you while getting crumbs in the process. And I wonder why men don't want the crumbs, or they don't want to engage at all with the system, or they figured out a way out by leaving the system and going somewhere else, delaying the decline for their lives. Why do you think we're pushing so much? Get your money up. Get your mind right. Build a strong body. This is all you have in this fucking world is your mind and your body. You don't want to be a slave in this system where they feed you the fucking slop, where you wake up every day with your dick in your hand to watch the porn slop they fucking produce, their slop fucking shows with the narratives they pump down your brain, the fucking slop on TikTok that you see or Instagram, all the bullshit mind raping you day in and day out, making you feel like you're going insane, then going to a job that pays you fucking nothing, and then they still take out of your paycheck while you're barely fucking surviving with 6 goddamn roommates. It's a joke. All you have in this fucking world is your mind and your body. That's it. The only 2 things you need to be focused on protecting. Eat as clean as you fucking can. Stop with the processed slop in the store, the fucking candy, the chocolates, the burgers, the fast food piece of shit that is raping your body, your testosterone. They've built a cage of comfort around your entire lives, and they'll say, I'm toxic. This is old toxic masculinity. It needs to be wiped away. You should cry. You should be weak. You should look like a pudgy piece of fucking shit. You should get mind raped to the point where you jack off 10 times a day and have no energy, no fucking will for anything. Any obstacle put in front of you, you crumble like a weak bitch because you've raped your mind and your body to the point where you're fucking a eunuch. Unbelievable. I don't even know what else to say. This video is triggering me. I don't want to watch the rest of it. I could go on for hours in this topic. I need to start live streaming again. I've been busy. Anyways, if you want to watch the rest of this, links will be in the description below. Crisis that nobody is talking about. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Jesus. Good luck out there, boys.